BMR sorghum, Sorghum-Sudan, Sudan grasses, and pearl millet are the other summer energy crops that have been overlooked in the Northeast and in North-Central U.S. Farmers are discovering they have a number of benefits that fit their farm, rotation, and efforts at reducing cost. With the help of the New York Farm Viability Institute, we researched the various varieties and types of these crops in the warm region near Albany, New York, and in the cool climate in northern New York, right next to the Canadian border. Successful livestock production is growing energy, protein, digestible fiber in sufficient amounts and low enough cost. BMR sorghum has these characteristics and grows with efficient C4 photosynthesis like corn. It does best in warm weather. Corn stops growing when temperatures exceed 85 degrees. Sorghum continues to grow to 105 degrees. Conversely, in cool or cold weather, sorghum will not grow as well, corn will grow better. The first issue we dealt with was farmers that are reluctant to grow a crop that may be lodged flat by harvest time. 2 to 3 pounds of seed head on a fishing pole thin stalk 11 feet in the air is a prescription for disaster. We are testing other choices in New York, looking at the matrix of agronomic properties and genetic makeup. Genetic advances have helped to minimize this potential problem. Brachytic dwarf gene makes a shorter internode for shorter, fatter stalks. It maintains yield while reducing lodging. Do not use a regular dwarf gene, as this makes less nodes and it makes much less forage yield. It is used on grain sorghum that is combined. Unfortunately, there are few brachytic BMR varieties short enough season for the northern U.S. regions. The impact of brachytic dwarf gene can be seen in these two sister lines. The one on the left it was brachytic, the one on the right normal. There was no significant yield difference, but there was a big difference in lodging potential. Corn silage normally produces 18 to 20 tons of silage on this site. A completely different approach to deal with lodging is a male sterile BMR sorghum. It gives high yield but without a seed head. It is much less susceptible to lodging. The energy is stored in plant cells as sugar, plant cell starch, and digestible fiber. Without a grain head, there is less chance of seeds getting over-mature and passing through the animal undigested. A third option is the use of a photoperiod-sensitive variety. In much of the U.S., these will not form a seed head and so not set any seed. The plant has very high fiber digestibility. 2 cautions. First, it is a very wet forage, and proper inoculant is needed for correct fermentation. Secondly, once the plant reaches more than 6 foot tall, it tends to start to lodge and needs to be harvested. It has greater potential in areas where it can be mowed and partially dried before ensiling. BMR Sudan grass is very popular as an emergency forage. It produces high-quality forage, but unfortunately is lower yielding in a one-cut system than sorghums or Sorghum-Sudans. The higher quality did not offset the lower yield in our trials. It works well in a rotationally grazed system or a multi-cut round bale if you have weather conditions that allow you to reduce plant moisture. BMR pearl millet was similar to BMR Sudan grass but much lower in yield. It was very high quality until heading. Quality rapidly decreases as the head emerges. This is very different than sorghums as they maintain quality as the head emerges. Unfortunately, the higher quality did not offset the lower yield. This would be an excellent crop for rotational grazing systems throughout the summer. The research we conducted was based on a one-cut system. There are 2 reasons for this. First, it dramatically reduces the cost per ton of the forage produced. Each time you drive over the field adds to the cost of that feed. The second reason is based on research from the University of Wisconsin. There they found that a one-cut system yielded more than twice as much in a year than a multi-cut. There is concern that multi-cut crops like Sorghum-Sudan cannot be directly harvested. Our research found that this was not the case, and it was easily harvested utilizing modern directionless corn heads found on farms today. Many organic farms are now considering one-cut Sorghum-Sudan as a replacement for corn silage. Corn needs multiple cultivating trips to control weeds. This comes at the expense of increasing the cost per ton of the crop. The more expensive cost is the time taken away from getting the hay crop silage harvested on time. Finally, continually loosening the soil with cultivation makes it more prone to erosion until a canopy closes. We planted Sorghum-Sudan at a recommended seeding rate into a stale seed bed method. Above the red line, there was no herbicide and copious weeds. Where we increased the sorghum seeding rate 1.5 to 1.8 times, there were no weeds where there was no herbicide above the red line. This method will not work with a brachytic sorghum as it emerges too slow to beat the weeds. For these crops to work in your ration, you need to realize they are not corn silage. Just replacing corn silage with sorghum is a prescription for disaster. The nutritionist needs to rework the ration, adjusting for the higher NDF, the higher digestibility of the NDF, the higher protein, and the slightly lower energy. For further information, go to our website, advancedagsys.com, and click on Newsletters.